You're listening to the IB4E Coaching Podcast.
Brought to you by IB4E Coaching, business coaching for executives, entrepreneurs, and small business professionals. Learn more at ib4e-coaching.com.
Hey, Coach Harlan here. Welcome back to the podcast. Hope you guys are having an exceptional week. I'm having a great week, and I'm excited to introduce you to my guest today. Please help me welcome Alfredo Borodowski. Alfredo Borodowski is an international speaker, peak performance and positive psychology expert, and culture transformation consultant. With over 30 years of experience guiding CEOs, top law firms, major corporations like Motorola and 2M, and more than 50 nonprofits, he helps leaders unlock higher engagement, innovation, and resilience. Through his personal journey overcoming mental illness and deep loss, Alfredo brings powerful insights on optimism, values, and growth, transforming toxic cultures into thriving, high-performing environments. Alfredo, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Coach Harlan. It's such a pleasure to be here. I don't believe 100% introduction, but, my mother would love it. But, thank you. Thank you for being here and giving me the opportunity to share some of my wisdom, maybe. With
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about, you say positivity plus purpose equals performance. 100% agree. My question to you is, how do you gauge whether someone is positive and whether they're working or acting with purpose? How do you gauge those things?
Well, when I speak with somebody, language is key. Okay. Language, more than a way of communicating, is an expression, a deep expression of our internal energy. Okay. Then I listen to every word a person uses. What is really amazing, Harlan, is that we know today from studies done here in America that 70% of people do not know their strengths. There is an epidemic of strength blindness.
Wow.
It's amazing. They have the strengths, but they are not aware of them. Then they use them somehow, but because they have not brought it to the surface, they are using it way below what they are capable. And
So they're not as effective as they could be.
Well,
right?
Not as effective. We know also from research that if you apply, first, if you know your strengths, just knowing them, bring you to 9 times higher chance of flourishing. That's by knowing. By applying them, you are 18 times with more chances to flourishing. Then 70% of people are going through life nine times below what they are really capable of.
Because they don't know.
Because they don't know.
Wow.
And they don't know because since childhood, they have been exposed to a culture of fixing instead of nourishing.
Okay.
Your parents try to fix you, your teachers try to fix you, your coaches try to fix you, then you go to work and your manager try to fix you, and then everybody trying to fix each other, and then instead of developing a culture that focuses on strength, we are on the fixing carbon, and we convince each other that we are absolutely broken, and we begin kind of forgetting about our strengths.
Wow.
Amazing. It's sad,
It is sad. It's very sad. Wow. Okay. All right. See, I want to get into this topic. That's why I was so anxious to talk to you about this, because I think this topic is huge. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about positivity, how you got involved in it, how your personal struggles helped you focus on this. But before we get started, I have 10 questions that I like to ask all of my guests. Now, my listeners know these are the questions made famous on the TV show Inside the Actors Studio, where the host James Lipton asks these same questions of his Hollywood guests from TV, film, and stage. And I figure if they're good enough for the Hollywood elite, they're certainly good enough for my guests. So,
Coach,
yes, sir.
Coach Harlan's 10 Commandments.
Sort of. Okay. All right. So, yeah, 10 simple questions. All right. First question. What is your favorite word?
Becoming.
Nice. Okay. What is your least favorite word?
Stagnation.
Yes. Very good. What turns you on?
A great idea.
What turns you off?
Mediocrity.
What sound or noise do you love?
Birds.
And what sound or noise do you hate?
Doing construction outside of my window on a Sunday at 7 in the morning.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. All right, question 7. What is your favorite curse word?
Well, I have to go to my origins, which is Spanish. I am from Argentina, and I tell you, people in Latin America curse better than the people, in the English domain. We are experts. And I think the most popular and the one that really hurts you is when somebody sends you to the private parts of your mother.
Yes.
And
yes.
There are psychological studies about that.
No doubt. No doubt. All right. What profession, other than your own, would you like to attempt?
A think tank, a head of a good think tank.
Good thinking. There you go. That sounds good. What profession would you not like to do?
Anything that has to do with construction that is precise, like engineer or something like that, everything would collapse 2 seconds later.
All right. And finally, Alfredo, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
That I gave it my best.
Very nice.
That I can look back and say I didn't waste the opportunities.
Nice. Very cool. Well, you certainly haven't wasted opportunities. You've done so much and you continue to do so much. And I definitely want to get into it. We're going to take a short break. I want to come back, talk more about positivity and purpose, talk about how you got involved in this, some of the programs you have going on and things, and at some point transition into courage and leadership. Okay. So we'll talk about all of that and more right after this. So listeners, stick with us. And I'm back with my guest, Alfredo Borodowski. Thank you so much for taking time to speak with us today. So we talked about your diverse background. I know we can't go into everything in the short time that we have, but I wanted to touch on a few areas. You are a rabbi, correct? You have a Doctor of Philosophy degree and a master's degree in social work. How has all of that influenced your work now on positivity?
It's all clearly philosophy is at the core of the way I think. Then I am a person of ideas, and then I like to think and analyze things. The rabbi brought to me also a dimension of spirituality. Okay, spirituality also within religion. I was also attracted to the main ideas, the intellectual history of religion. Then, but brought me as a congregational rabbi that I was for many years in touch with people and moving from ideas to life. And ultimately, because of my personal journey that I imagine you're going to ask me about, I needed to serve people better. And I went to social work. And from social work, I realized that paradoxically, in the world today, most of the experimental things and the risk takers, where you can apply the new ideas, are in the business world. And that's how I moved also into positive psychology. And I work mostly with corporations, organizations, leaders to bring positivity and peak performance into that domain.
Nice. So was there a specific moment that you said, this is what I was meant to do? This is why I'm here?
Then let me share my story.
Sure.
I did not expect, wanted, looked to become an expert on positive psychology and peak performance, because I was on top of the world and I didn't need to think about any of those until I lost everything. And that happened to me on a very precise moment. Around 10 in the morning on June 19th, 2013, when I was arrested. Yes, at that point, I was the rabbi of a very prestigious congregation in Westchester. I had CEOs as congregants of MetLife, Prime Media. I had half of Wall Street at my congregation and partners on the best law firms in Manhattan. Then I was on top of the world. I had an office facing Central Park. Then coming from middle class in Argentina, I would go every morning, put my feet on my desk, drink a coffee, look through the window at Central Park and say, Alfredo, you made it big.
Nice. Yeah.
Until a congregant of mine, a retired policeman, gave me one of those friends and family shields. Okay, not a card, a shield. If he said, Rabbi, with this, you will have no problems. Well, that's when the problems began, because I was wrongly medicated with an antidepressant, and I was manic. And between the shield and the wrong medication and the mania, I began patrolling the highways of New York and telling people how to drive, showing them the shield. Until Harlan, I was fortunate to show the shield to a young lady who was the fiancée of a policeman on that town. And 3 minutes later, I had 3 police patrols behind me. I was handcuffed. I was then brought to the precinct, then to a judge, and I was accused of impersonating a police officer, which is a big thing, a felony.
Yeah.
And I had 4 cases against me because other people came out of the woods and accused me. I was hospitalized. I was diagnosed bipolar, which I didn't know, about until then.
Right.
I was fired from my job. My friends turned their back on me. I had lectures and seminars and workshops all scheduled. Everything overnight was canceled. And because I was the rabbi of a prestigious congregation, the press made a circus out of me, and they baptized the rabbi as the road rage rabbi.
Wow.
And I was on the front page of newspapers from Ireland to Japan. Now, amazing. I never touched anybody, by the way. No violence. Right. I just showed it wrong, but it went completely ballistic. And I was depressed, and I got into a couch in a fetal position without being able to move for 8 months. Wow. In complete darkness and obscurity, until one day I felt that energy. I stood up from the couch. I went upstairs to my office, and I found something on my desk, which Harlan, I do not know how it got there. It was a yellow folder. I opened it, and I found the results of a test in positive psychology I had taken a few years earlier, and I read my top 5 strengths, which are what is called the signature strengths. And I read creativity, love of learning, curiosity, perseverance, and courage.
Nice.
And at that moment, something happened inside of me. I said, Alfredo, wow, you lost your essence, you lost yourself. And I was energized by the 5 top strengths of positive psychology. And a month later, I was back to school, to social work school. And with depression, with the court cases, I went through school with the highest grades, with a lot of energy, became a social worker, and went into positive psychology. And that's why I am going throughout the world, everywhere I can, giving people a chance to know the top 5 strengths and flourish 18 times more than what they can now. And move people away from this blindness of strengths, which is so costly, okay, and unnecessary.
Yeah. Wow. That's a tough story. But like you said, something made you get up. Something made you go upstairs,
Yeah.
and there it was. And you have no idea how that was on your desk.
No, and how it got there. But I think that people who had gone through crisis, there are moments like that of clarity, of energy that suddenly comes to you, of some openings and opportunities. Okay, maybe I put the file there. Okay, and I knew that it was there, but it's ultimately irrelevant. What is important is that I discover it, and what is important that I had my top strengths ready for me, that I had taken the test 2 years earlier, I had forgotten about, but that I had them ready for me when I needed them.
Right. Nice. Very nice. So I know you work with businesses and people, right, to help them to achieve their maximum results. What is it that they resisting their strengths, or they just don't know
Don't
what their
know.
strengths are?
First of all, don't know. I mean, 70% of people do not know. Okay, it's just that they don't have the tools to discover them, and I will tell everybody how to get them, and also because what I mentioned before, the culture of fixing.
Right.
Okay, then you go to a performance review at work, and basically your manager is talking all the time on what you need to improve, rather what you're doing great and could do even better.
Right.
Okay, and you already go to those performance review with fear and trembling. Okay, in a survival mood, then not only that you will not exercise your strengths, you're going to be going on the negative side. And part of being on the negative on processes of managing is a question of power and control.
Yeah.
And also the idea that we were taught that we only can do things well if we suffer first.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
Okay,
understand that, but yeah, that's true.
but
But
it's
you're right.
very
In
ingrained.
business, our managers try to, like you say, fix us, make us better in the role that they want us in, not necessarily the role that uses or taps into our strengths.
The
How
role is secondary to the strengths. Okay, and that's the way it really works. Clearly, you have a position in the company where you have to fulfill the basic demands and requirements. But the strengths are the leading force that is moving things forward.
Right. Wow. So you said that you can teach people how to find their strengths. How do you do that? Are there assessments you take, or
Yeah, do it very easy. I will ask everybody who's listening now to take their phone, go to their text, and text the word positive to 33777. Okay,
33777?
I see that you're writing it down. That's good,
Yep.
Harlan. Just send the word positive to 33777, and I will send you, first of all, a chart with the 24 strengths of positive psychology, because there are 24 that we have discovered that they are the central strengths that we found across cultures, geographies, times. I mentioned mine, but we have also forgiveness, gratitude, humor, humility. Okay, then I will send you the chart, and I will send you a few questions, simple ones, that will help you determine your 5 top strengths.
Nice.
And I will give you also a few exercises that you can use and apply them. As I mentioned, that's going to bring you to 9 to 18 times more flourishing and results. Then I will give you. And then for those who want to go further, I will, I have some complementary one-on-ones, okay, if you want to go
Okay.
if you want to go further. But everybody should get their strengths. Again, just text positive to 33777, and you get
Very nice.
it. And I want everybody. I am on a quest,
Nice.
personal quest for people to get their strengths.
Excellent. Very cool. That's awesome. I love that.
Very easy. I used to get my last name, my site, the website, A Borodowski. I cannot even spell my own last name. Then then I found this textiful where you
Yeah.
just text one word to an easy number, and voila.
Nice. Perfect. No, that's excellent. So when you walk into a company, what is it you're looking for to see? I know you mentioned listening to the words, because we subconsciously we use words that match whatever our mood is. If we're angry words come out. If we're scared type words come out. So you listen to the language. What else do you look for to see if they're in trouble from a positivity standpoint?
Yes, Carlan, because I work through science. Positive psychology is a science.
Mhm.
It's evidence-based. Then the first thing I do is a good diagnosis. And I do it basically through 3 instruments. I give them the Myers-Briggs, the MBTI, which is an instrument on personality.
Okay.
I give them the VIA, the values in action, who is an instrument for positive psychology, and I give them the purpose factor, which is a new instrument, just came out on purpose. There are no more than 100 people licensed today on the purpose factor, which is the latest instrument. Is amazing. I am one of them. Then the first thing I see, I gather a lot of very good data about personality, strengths, and purpose. And and for example, when I work with teams, I build a profile of the personality, strengths, and purpose, and I go to the company already with a deep knowledge about the dynamics, about who are the members of the team, how they interact with each other. I see the blind spots very clearly, I tell you. I see where there are places where the team needs to work, what are the strategies to improve in certain areas. They usually call me because they have an issue, like, we are, the sales team is not achieving, etc. There's a toxic culture, there is some kind of disconnect between the CEO and some area. And then once I have a diagnosis, then what I like to do is to lead workshops which are very dynamic, with a lot of games, with a lot of activities, to basically lower resistance. Okay, if this is going to be is about positivity, then it has to be positive experience.
Right.
Okay, then that's a methodology. Very strong diagnosis, workshops which are enjoyable, dynamic, and change paradigms. And I enjoy also a lot working one-on-one. And when I work one-on-one, we did a lot of what is called origin story.
Right.
Okay, how people make decisions.
Yeah.
Okay, and usually we learn how to make decisions between the age of 5 and 15, very early on. And the decisions we made through the experiences of 5 to 15 usually are done out of fear.
Right. Or
Then,
yeah, because we're not taught specifically how to make decisions, how to base our decisions on our core values or anything like that. We learn by observation. And so if our parents aren't making very good decisions, chances are we're not going to make very good decisions, right?
everybody has a moment or a series of moments that had really influenced how they make decisions, and that we call decisions by default.
Okay.
Which are decisions made by default in order to prevent experiencing the unpleasant again. And what I do, we go to that moment and then we learn from them, and we go from decision by default to decision by design. And once we move to that area of decision by design, we soar. We go into peak performance.
Nice. Now, when you're working with companies and you talk about helping people understand what their strengths are, a lot of times they're not in a position where their strength can be used or tapped into. How open are the managers, the business owners, to moving people around into places where they can actually use their strength? It seems like they would resist that.
No, but you can use your strengths on every position. Okay, the strengths are universal, are applicable to any position. Okay, now when I work with teams, and we have, like I call, a market of strengths where a marketplace of strengths where different members of the team begin knowing, oh yes, that's your strength, that's my strength. They begin collaborating in a different way. It happens very naturally. Okay, very, very naturally, in terms of, oh yes, that's your strength, that's my strength. Now, I also believe, and this has been proven over and over, that within the description of the work has to be a percentage of time of free thought and creativity where people have to apply their strengths. At Google, at big companies, most of the greatest breakthrough happen on times where the company allowed different members of teams to create their own team and to work on a project. Okay. Now, what I find in many companies I go is that they are in a survival mechanism in which they are, I just went to a company where almost like every 2 or 3 weeks, they have an performance assessment. Okay. It's impossible to be creative.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to apply your strengths, under such pressure. Okay, then that's one of the things that I look at. How they diagnose performance, how the managers talk. Okay, what we know from research is that in order to get best results, people have to feel well. And it's something that companies sometimes don't ask themselves. How do the people working here feel?
Right.
Okay.
They might be afraid. They might be afraid to ask.
They are afraid they're missing the opportunity of peak performance.
Yeah. Do you have a success story, one that stands out, that you worked with the company and just made tremendous leaps with them?
I tell you one of the last ones. I usually think about, I went to a company, very large company, where the sales team was second. This wasn't in the United States, by the way. It was another country. It was second on the market, and the CEO believed that they could be first, but the team was very happy to be second. There are many in the market. Second is okay, and they were kind of. The CEO said to me, they are not hungry. They are complacent, being number two. That's a great position to be, but I think they can be number one. And it was a new CEO. And then I did my full diagnosis, and I found something amazing. And this is very rare. All the members of the sales team had only two types on the Myers-Briggs and share the first top strengths.
Wow.
Which means going to an ice cream parlor and having only one flavor for ice cream.
Right.
But what's more amazing is that the CEO had a type and strength which were 180 degrees opposite to the profile of the team.
Interesting.
Then you have a team that was very conservative, traditional, that believed that the best way to do things were to replicate what they did last. Okay, they was a very reliable team,
Yeah.
Okay, a team that got things done, but had basically very low capacity of vision and creativity.
Yeah.
And you had
not a lot of creativity. If they're all the same, they think the same, they act the same, right?
They are the same, and not only that, they think the same and act the same within types which are conservative, not visionary. They work on precedent more than creativity. And you had a CEO whose main personality type and strengths were visionary.
Wow.
Okay, and one of the things is that the team had as the number one strength, almost on everybody, honesty. That was a big asset.
Okay.
Then I knew that at least we could have a very honest conversation. Okay, and then my job was to create channels of communication between a CEO that was standing basically on a different planet from the team and create the common language. I clearly gave them exercises, okay, and I was able ultimately to create a great team also between the CEO and the team, and also clearly I advised them, and they understood this, that in future hirings, they needed to do work to see the profile and character strengths of future people, to bring more variety into the team, because they were on this modality of already hiring in the same way and asking the same questions, leading towards one personality type.
Wow.
They had to redefine their hiring process, and I helped them with that.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah.
I love it. For me, I am a detective. The way I call myself is an optometrist.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I open corporations and leaders' eyes to their strengths. In fact, I have an exercise when I go to teams. When you go to the optometrist, they have this thing. I just went to get my real ID, and I renew my license, and they read column numbers 10 to see if you have eyesight. Then I prepare one of these for every member of the team, and on top, on big letters, I put all the negative.
Okay.
And on little, on very small letters, I put all their strengths, and I ask them to stand far, and they see all the negative.
Wow.
And then begin taking one step at a time until they see the positive. It's a very nice exercise,
Nice.
and that's the transition, the paradigm that we need to go through.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds like fun. Very cool.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Um, is there a wrong way to use positive psychology? I mean, like some people try to, I don't know, fake it or misuse it somehow. Can you think of any
Then,
instances like that?
then positive psychology is the science of flourishing. It's not the science of positivity.
Okay.
Okay. Then it's not about the rosy ideal world. It's about
Right.
flourishing. Flourishing takes work. Okay. And realism is part of positivity. Then you see optimism, for example, which is part of the strengths. Then we define optimism like realistic flexibility. Okay, then you want to be optimistic, but you have to be realistic and flexible. Okay, then it's not optimism in terms of, oh yes, everything will happen, and I sit down to wait for the world. No. Then we need to understand. I think that in some way, positive psychology is misleading because people equate positive with nothing negative.
Right.
Okay, is not the case. There is a place for pessimism.
Mhm.
Okay, pessimism grinds you, and give you solid perspective. It has to be used consciently and well. Okay, then that's the negative side. The negative side is unfair because it's not what positive psychology talks about.
Right.
But because of the name, has been misunderstood.
Yeah. Hmm. Got it. Yeah. So I can see that misunderstanding between positivity and the positive strengths. Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. Um, uh, let's talk about courage. On the podcast, we talk about courage. Where did you find the courage to create your own success? Where did you find the courage to move away from a job to create your own business? Where did you find the courage to get off the couch after everything like that
Look,
and start? Where did that courage come from?
I will give you an answer, Harlan, which I think is unusual. At least I haven't heard people articulating it this way. I get courage from fear.
Hmm. Okay.
For me, the fear,
Explain. Yeah.
yes, for me, the fear of failure,
Yeah.
the fear of not fulfilling my potential, okay, is very deep. And this may have to be also with the way I was pushed by my parents as a child. They were Jewish parents with a lot of aspirations for me. Then in some way I regret that, but in some way I see the positive within it, that they gave me resilience and a fear of not going where I want to go. Then
Okay.
then my courage is fueled by fear, the fear of regretting not going where I should. And I think that's something that most people think about that they don't talk about, which is when you get to certain years in your life, maybe over 60, you begin asking the question, did I
Mhm.
do all I wanted to do, I could do?
Right.
Okay. I have a fear of that question.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure that I have the courage at the end of the journey to say, I don't know what I got, maybe not what I wanted or what I dreamed about, but I gave it my best shot at getting where I am.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I think fear influences and impacts a lot of the decisions and things that we make. So yeah, I
It's
can
not the
see.
paralyzing, it's not the paralyzing irrational fear. It's the fear of Alfredo, don't this don't fail to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. That fear of missing out, the fear of like you said, not accomplishing everything that you potentially could. I would hate to think that I'm on my deathbed thinking, could I have done more? Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. You know, the best scene on the movie, but on the movies, by the way, that I've seen for that is the movie Saving Private Ryan with Tom
Hmm.
Hanks, in which, you
Right.
know, so many people gave their life to save him, and he's standing with his family. He's an old man, and he's looking at the tomb of the sergeant of, you know, played by Tom Hanks, and said, "Tell me that I had lived a worthwhile life."
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the question. Tell me that I had lived a worthwhile life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. All right. You work with a lot of executives, a lot of leaders, team leaders and things, different companies and individuals. What do you look for in a leader? What makes a good leader?
A leader is the one who make good things to be better. From good to great, there is a book.
Right?
Okay. A leader is not somebody who wait until a crisis to become a leader, although it's important that they know how to go through crisis. But the good leader is the one who maximizes the potential of what is going on well. The one who rides the wave, okay, with
Yeah.
the energy of the company, okay, the one who 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 knows how to make people loyal to the company by letting them be the best they can
Right.
for being happy and then giving back to the company the best of them. Okay, then that's what I think a positive leader is, and an authentic leader. Okay, and it's not a leader who goes through survival, but through creativity,
Yeah.
and doesn't make decisions through default, but design.
By design. Absolutely. And I think this is a good starting point for managers because you're right. We have employees in a certain position. We try to make them into our likeness almost in that position rather than finding out how can we tap into their natural strengths. Um, so yeah, I think that's good. I
You have
love
to
the
see, you have to see when people discover the strengths. By the way, there's a transformation in the company. I mean, it's happened naturally.
yeah, yeah,
The language changes. You know, I like every person. I recommend that they take one of the top strengths, the five top, and every day of the week for a week they apply one of their strengths, top strengths, intentionally to their work.
okay,
And after a week, the energy and motivation goes up like crazy. Okay. And you always find ways to apply one strength every day to your work. Your work presents you always with opportunities to apply the strength. Always.
but absolutely, but in other areas of your life too, right? Because I know that a lot of times if you struggle at work, you're probably struggling at home on the same thing. I know leaders who are poor communicators at work with their employees. They don't have a good communication style at home either, right? So if you shift your thought, your mindset to work on your strengths and bring that to your job, bringing it to your home is probably a
No
good thing
question.
too. Yeah.
They will change your life. You're going to begin seeing strengths in your wife. You're going to be let me tell you a story. When I was 13 years old or 14 years old, I was in Buenos Aires, and we were at what is called Jumbo, which is like Walmart. We
Okay.
didn't
Okay.
have
Right.
Walmarts when I was 13, 14, but we had something similar called Jumbo. And that day, I went there with my father, and I wanted a bicycle. Now, we need to understand that 40 years ago, a bicycle was a big purchase for a middle-class family. Today, you go and buy a bicycle for, $150. At that point, you bought a car, and then you bought a bicycle. Then my father wasn't there to buy me a bicycle, and I was insistent. Papa, I want a bicycle, I want a bicycle. Now, my father didn't know anything about positive psychology. Actually wasn't invented at that point. And he said to me, Alfredo, you want a bicycle, go around the supermarket and tell me how many pregnant women are here. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the question, Harlan, is how many pregnant women were at the supermarket?
I don't know how many.
There was at least one pregnant woman on each aisle. I think that was the Buenos Aires Convention of Pregnant Women at the supermarket. Okay. Why? Because I was looking for them. And when you look for something, you see it.
Right.
This is like the game the kids play here on the highways, looking for plates from different states.
Yes. Yes.
And they find them. If you're not looking for the plates, you don't see them.
True.
Then one, it's amazing. Basically our eyes see what we are looking for. Then that's happened with the strengths at companies. Once I work with a team on strengths, or with CEOs on strengths, now they begin seeing strengths everywhere.
Everywhere. Nice.
They begin seeing
like
strengths of each other. They begin seeing strengths of their wives. They begin seeing strengths of their kids.
Nice.
That's why I call myself an optometrist of strengths, because they begin seeing the world in a different way, and the positivity and the energy and the motivation skyrockets.
Nice. Very cool. I love that. Alfredo, this has been awesome. And I definitely want to have you back on because I want to keep diving into this even more.
Yeah, we haven't talked about purpose, which is
that's true.
Purpose is another encounter in itself. We've only seen positivity. The equation is positivity plus purpose equal peak performance. I think that we need to do another one on purpose.
Okay, that sounds good to me. I will do that.
I am ready.
We'll put that on the calendar. And again, if people text the word positive to 33777, they'll start getting your information on strengths and everything, right?
They will get a very nice 4 pages. First of all, they get a very nice graphic of the 24 strengths.
Okay.
They get 3 simple questions to determine the top 5. They get a section with exercises if they want to go apply them to life, and they get an opportunity to meet with me if they want. Okay. Just free of charge, if they want to have a one-on-one, which I always enjoy. As you can see, talking, dialoguing is something I deeply enjoy.
Very good. That is excellent. Thank you so much for that. And then if they want to find out more about you, do you have a website they can go to?
Yeah, I do not do websites because the way I like networking, podcasts. Then this will give you my email, will give you my calendar. If they want to get in touch with me, that's an easy way to do it.
Okay, excellent. And LinkedIn, you're on LinkedIn too.
Yes,
right?
Lincoln. Lincoln, please connect with me. Okay, I post three times a week. I post something scientific about positive psychology. Today, for example, I just today I published very to the point on what is called psychological capital. Okay, we have discovered what is called psychological capital in 2 words: is hope, optimism, resilience, and efficacy will basically bring you to a different level at your company. And I explain that on my post. Then 3 times a week, I post something from positive psychology, evidence-based. Contact me on LinkedIn, Alfredo Borodowski, and I will accept the connection and let's be in dialogue.
Excellent. Perfect. All right. I will have all of that information down in the show notes. A link to LinkedIn. I'll put the positive to the number 33777. And yeah, I would definitely like to have you back on so we can talk more about purpose.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Alfredo, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for great questions. You made me think a lot. The 10 questions were amazing. Then thank you for this opportunity and, for this dialogue.
Absolutely. All right. Listeners, hope you guys are taking a lot of notes. Again, down in the show notes, I'll have links to Alfredo's LinkedIn profile, the information on how you can receive the information from him about your strengths, try to find out what your strengths are, use your strengths, find them, apply them. Like I said, pick one strength and apply it every day for the week and just see how your life starts changing. It'll be amazing. Share this episode with your family, friends, and your colleagues, and stick around because there's always more coming. That's it for me, Coach Harlan, saying so long for now.